everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Business Ethics Walk the Talk. I'm your host, Blake Peterson, and I am so very, very grateful for all of the support you guys have shown us across the years. Today's guest is Armando Salgado, and he is incredible, a fantastic communicator, a serial entrepreneur, and a connector across communities. Can't wait to listen to this episode. You're going to love it. But before I dive into that, I do want to let you all know about an exciting event we have coming up with the Business Ethics Alliance. There's a Summer Leadership Ethics Luncheon on Thursday, August 22nd at Charles Schwab Field. The topic is authentic relationships in an inauthentic digital world. Goodness gracious, that sounds like a fantastic topic, something I wish I could have touched on in a podcast or something. Maybe I will, because it seems incredible. You know, chatbots, automated phone inquiries, hacked social media profiles, data breaches. These are all things that can impact your trust, impact relationships. I know that we're dealing with every day. Let's get together, talk about it. Let's see how you're dealing with it, how other companies around you are dealing with these problems, and maybe learn from one another how we can expand and get past this, because I don't think we're going backward. I think we're going to end the digital age, and it's here to stay, baby. So I hope you all will come to the event. I hope to see you at the luncheon. If you're ever scared to come to an event, don't have someone to come with, hit me up on LinkedIn. I would love to have you as my guest. I would love to have you at any of the events. So please, please, please support the Alliance, and I hope to see you there. Now, without further ado, here's our episode. Welcome to Business Ethics Walk the Talk. I'm your host, Blake Peterson. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I've got a fantastic guest with me, somebody who's been a friend of the Alliance for a long time, a speaker on many panels, a former trustee of the Alliance, somebody who has had a lot of time, energy, and involvement in the community that is Omaha, and not only Omaha, but really the world, in some of the businesses that you've created and how you've affected people globally. And so this is Armando Salgado. And Armando, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you, Blake. Thank you for having me here today. This is a great opportunity to talk, and definitely, talk about the organizations, that I'm a part of. That's really cool. And Ethics Alliance is a great organization that is very much needed within business in general.
Yeah, absolutely. But if it weren't for business owners like yourself taking it upon themselves to apply ethics into the community, I mean, what would the Alliance be, right? And that's kind of the foundation of it. And it's so fun to have these conversations, because we want that ethical conversation to extend beyond the four walls of the rooms when they have the events and whatnot.
Correct.
Correct. I want to give our listeners a little bit of your background, and I know we're going to have to even go back and touch on more of this, because you have so many things. I mean, your hand is just in everything, and it's impressive. Since I met you, I was like, goodness gracious, this guy he's doing a little bit of everything. You're doing a great job at it. So, going on your experience, so obviously you have professional experience in various fields. You have over 10 years of experience working with nonprofit organizations, and including founding a couple of them that we're going to talk about later. You have over 15 years in real estate, over 15 years in marketing and advertising. That's probably closer to 20 now, really, if we're talking about this.
Closer to 20.
Yeah. 10 years in construction and over 10 years in shipping. You do all these various things, and so maybe we can start at the main company that I know you for. You are the founder, owner of Lingo Docs, which is you're trying to grow into being the largest bilingual marketing company in the world, right? That's the goal you put out there. I love it. I love it. And for why do you think, I guess to start this out, why Lingo Docs? Why Omaha? How did you get to this point where you decided this is something you even thought you could begin to create, and why this was a perfect place to do it?
So yeah, that's a great question, man. Everybody asks me Lingo Docs. What's Lingo Docs? What does that even mean? So I many years ago, in I'm gonna say 2000, 2001, 2002, during my time at UNO, I started buying properties for rent. So I bought my first house when I was 18,
Nice.
With a little bit of help with my parents.
Yeah.
But after that, I started just getting rentals, and I would fix. That's why I started learning construction. Just YouTube University wasn't that prominent at that time. So I would go to like the big box chains, and look at books and kind of like, how do you do drywall? And how do you stretch carpet, and how do you solder, the copper piping, and because I didn't have any money to pay people.
Yeah.
I had just enough money to or a loan, really a mortgage loan, to get the property.
Right.
My first property was a duplex. My first investment property was a duplex, and I knew I had to pay the mortgage. Didn't have any money for the mortgage. I'm like, I'll just get renters and that'll pay the mortgage, right? That's the whole concept.
Right.
Well, I didn't get any rent. It was the third week, and then the month was coming up, and it was about 33rd and about across the street from Gifford Park, 33rd and Cass, and I put a sign outside. Well, the for rent sign. I got a Sharpie and I put hablo español. And I speak Spanish. And then boom, 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 got a bunch of calls. And I'm like, I'll take whoever at this point, because I need to get money right away.
Yeah.
So I had some other landlord gave me like a 15, 20 page lease agreement. I was like, okay, whatever. This is what you need to do. Not knowing anything at that point. I gave it to a Hispanic family. I said, perfect. Here's a deposit. Okay, here's the lease. And they just went ahead and signed it. And I love to joke around. I said, oh, thank you for giving me the titles to your vehicles.
Right.
Right. And they're like, what? And they try to kind of like take the document away from me. And I'm like, I'm just joking around. Yeah. I've been around, I've helped my parents out. I was an interpreter. I was a translator since I was a kid. And I said, look, you have to make sure you know what you're reading before you sign, because you don't know, luckily I'm a good person, but you're going to bump into some pretty sketchy people that are going to try to take advantage of you because of you not understanding we just signed.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a great idea. How are the other landlords doing this, dealing with the Hispanic community? Yeah. I was at UNO studying for a test, and I'm like, what's the lingo? What's the lingo, right? For this, these documents, like lease agreements and, 3-day notices and noise complaint letters. So all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, lingo docs. That's how lingo docs started.
Sweet.
And I was a columnist for the World Herald in high school.
Oh,
believe
cool.
it or not, I went to Central High School.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it'd be great to talk about these things in English and Spanish. In Omaha, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Like at that time, no publication or really no social media wasn't that big at that point. Mm-hmm. So it was emails, right? You send an email blast or the radio or TV or a newspaper or magazines. Let me start a magazine. And it was the original magazine was called Se Vende Se Renta Real Estate Magazine. So for sell, for rent. Real estate magazine in Spanish. Mm-hmm. And didn't go very well, right? I was like, well, I'm a columnist. I can do this too. Right. But that's how Lingo Docs started. It was kind of a mixture of like the need of something, right? And then I pre-translated a bunch of documents, had an attorney kind of sign off on them, make sure it was, gave me the blessing. Yeah. And started selling them on CDs. Wow. Like people were selling CDs. I was selling CDs, not with music, but with documents that they can download in English and Spanish in case they had to deal with Hispanic families across the nation, pretty much.
That's a great idea, though. What a way to identify the need, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, what a great entrepreneurial story. And it's fantastic. I mean, you saw a need and you just attacked it, right? And it's also helping out a community you care about so much, and the community that you're from. Yep. Right. And
that was the main point is like, I've seen the Hispanic community get taken advantage of because, there's two more barriers that this community has over other communities is language, right? And culture. So culture, you're used to doing things a certain way and you're not familiar with the new ways of doing things. So you just jump in like whatever. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that community would no, there's not going to be somebody with you at all times holding your hand. So you have to learn how to protect yourself.
Right. And it's a good thing you can be there for them. Right. And so with Lingo Docs now, what has it evolved to? What are your usual clients? What are you usually translating, and who's coming to you for your services now? Who do you find you're helping?
So the documents are still on the site. That service is still there. You can you just go in, technology. I love it now, and you can download, pay for them, and boom, and you get a link at your on your email or whatever. And but it's kind of like one of the last things that are there. What I started with is people would ask me, well, since you print the magazine, do you print business cards? I'm like, yes. I just kind of said yes to everything. Yeah. Since you print business cards, do you print banners? I said yes. Since you do this, do you print shirts? I said yes, and just figured it out. At that moment, I went to other companies. I said, hey, do you have a wholesale model? And little by little, I went and started, acquiring my own equipment, and now we do printing, signage, custom apparel, websites, graphic design, web design, translations. Of course, we still do that. We do a virtual assistant service. I have a call center in Central America, so that's a whole different story. But that a lot of the stuff that I do is there wasn't at that time when I started Lingo Docs, there weren't that many capable people in Omaha that could be bilingual, have the experience of knowing how to do a website, for example.
Right.
So I had to look outside of Omaha, and I looked outside of the States, and it landed in Central America.
Yeah, it makes sense. And when you're dealing with that, so now you have obviously you're selling to all different kinds of people. At the core of this, you're servicing the group, the individuals, the community that you're so attached to. What were some of those ethical considerations, or maybe some hurdles you've had along the way as you've grown, right? So you have some customers who may be coming to you to print certain documents and want you to translate. They want you to do things in a way that maybe they're not tied into the culture. They may not understand exactly what works well within the Mexican Hispanic community, and you do. So are there any times in which you've had any hurdles that you've cleared, or anything that really was like an eye-opening experience as you were taking on these new projects that's great. You were just saying yes to everything. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have that same kind of tenacity to just figure it out as they're going. So what were some of those things that you encountered on your journey? So,
our niche, right? And I always tell people, we're not the only printer in town. There's tons of them, but what's your niche? I said, well, we wanted to be the bridge between the two languages, right? And between two different cultures. Now there's tons of different cultures, right? There's a lot of refugee communities that are in Omaha now. That's a whole different language, different culture, different way of doing things.
Right.
And the problem with a lot of the big companies in Omaha or nationwide is that, they're used to doing it a certain way. Here is the process, which is completely fine, but one size does not fit all. Right. So I would tell them, I say, just because you do it a certain way in South or West Omaha, geographically speaking, or just for context, doesn't mean that it's going to work the same way in South Omaha. Right. The same message you use over there is not going to be the correct message to use over here. So, I focused on that and saying, okay, how can you better communicate the same outcome? You want the same outcome, but two different messages. So that way that was drafted, and we can do that by culturally sensitive designs and translations and whatnot. Let me help you throughout the entire thing, so you don't have to go to individual, businesses to get that ultimate outcome. So that's how we got our name out there, and now we try to do that outside Omaha as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think of cases, we were talking about how I lived in South Omaha before we started recording, and at the Supermercado where I did a lot of my shopping when COVID happened. The signs, all the signs, you've ever been in the Supermercado, it's written in Spanish. But the signs for the social distancing and whatnot all came out in English. And I mean, I'm sure there's a high percentage of individuals who shop there that are bilingual, but I just thought to myself, I'm like, this doesn't really make sense here. Why not? I mean, it was obviously a bigger chain that dropped the ball, in my opinion. and communication. So
yeah. So that's we focus on that, right? Still our biggest customer base is Hispanic.
Right.
Not just in Omaha anymore. I mean, it started in Omaha, but it's all nationwide at this point.
Yeah.
And we focus a lot on the Hispanic market. Just in Omaha alone, 2025, we're gonna outgrow. It's gonna be a good 25%, 2050. Sorry, that of Omaha or Nebraska.
Wow.
Latinos,
Yeah.
we're the largest minority at this point, and we're talking about Nebraska.
Right.
Imagine Texas, California, Florida.
Yes.
It's I keep telling businesses, I said, if you're not on this train now,
Yeah.
you're going to be left behind, because how can you stop it? Is there not to get into politics, but there's no way you can stop it at this point.
No, and it's also important to communicate effectively with both sides of the market, right? To your point. And goodness, what are some examples you might think of brands that I don't want you to call anybody out by any means like that, but if you were to drop the ball, are there any instances where you see those brands that have really had a big decline? Like they tried to come to market, they tried to bring something to the Hispanic community, the populace, and it just fell flat on its face, and maybe they ended up coming to you to try to put them back together, or is there anything like that you can think of?
The big brands, the international brands that have a whole department just to deal with a certain sector, right?
Yeah.
And even then, you're like, I don't know if I would do it that. I mean, locally, yes, we're Hispanic, but it's done a little different here in Omaha versus LA, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if you speak the same language, right? But no, a lot of the local bigger businesses is where I could probably give you an example, not calling anybody out, but they're like, no, this is how we've done it for the last 100 years.
Right.
And you're like, well, Armando, why aren't we being effective with this community?
Right.
Like the bigger like life insurance companies, the financial, companies, the big banks, we see this is the fastest growing community in Omaha, in business as well, not just in population, but in business. How can we get more of that money over here?
Right.
And I'm like, well, you're using the same thing, hoping for the exact same thing that you're using over there, and you're not going to. So those that do are flexible and changing the way they do things, are going to be more, they're going to gain more of that business.
Right.
Right. So, that's still going on.
Right.
Some bigger companies just don't want to change.
Yeah.
They're too big. They're slow. They don't want to change. Why would we change if we are now at this level? Like, this process got us to be very, very effective and got us a lot of more money. I said, well, things are changing. I'm like, I get it. There's some things I don't want to change.
Yeah.
But in business, sometimes you got to maneuver a little bit, you got to pivot.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you got to pivot, man, or else, you're going to miss out on that fastest growing market.
Right. And it makes a lot of sense because especially if we're to think about, I mean, I have no finance and life insurance. So the dream that you pitch to like myself, born, raised here, maybe my idea of the American dream versus someone who is a first generation American coming over here are two different things.
Yep.
And perhaps the values are different. I think a lot of people want the same outcome, right? Everyone wants to be happy, have a healthy family, take care of them. But there's the connectiveness of maybe it's more important to them. They save money to bring over more of their family to be here with them than necessarily start saving for your retirement right now.
Or
and doing
vice
X, Y, and
versa.
Z.
My parents, their main goal was to always go back.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
They did, they retired 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is, I was here as a kid. I'll go back to visit.
Yeah. Right.
I go to Cancun and all that,
sure.
every year if I can, but I can't, I don't see myself going back. This is my home, but for them, that's their home, and they did go back.
Yeah.
Right. So it depends. You're right. I mean, everybody does want to make sure that they as they get older are more comfortable in not having to work their butts off, and until their last days.
Yeah.
But how the process of getting to that point is very different because we don't agree on the same things,
Sure.
and we have to respect different differences. And,
Absolutely.
And in communications, and then I love marketing because, in psychology, and believe it or not, when I went to UNO, I actually went to be a child psychologist. All the stuff I do now has had nothing to do back in 1999.
Right.
But it's communication. If everybody just communicated better, I always say if I can learn another language, I would understand people better. And why do you do things that way, and why do you wear that, and why do you worship that, and what kind of like I want to know. And I think the more we know about each other, the more that we're going to respect each other.
Yeah.
Versus this is the way things are, and if you're here, this is how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
Take it or leave it, or else get out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and that ain't gonna happen.
No, it's so interesting because the great point you brought up is now the cultures within a culture within a culture, and that's the beauty of America, right? That's what it always has been. It's like my great grandfather was the first generation American who came over here from Sweden, and ever since then, I mean, my ties to Sweden are non-existent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're right. My home has always been here, and I have a couple of artifacts I keep to look at, but that's really it.
Yeah.
It's now an American culture. There's so much to get brought into. How do you see yourself as being the person who can maybe bridge that gap? Because there's the bridging the gap between, maybe a first generation American and then also, coming in someone who's already born and raised here, but within your own community as, you yourself have a different relation than your parents do to this country, and your kids are going to have a different one than maybe even you do.
Yep. Do
you see yourself as a connector amongst those?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, within at least this current, I'm going to say current mix of generations, right? Because it's the same thing as you got the Gen Zs. I got my Gen Z daughter, right? That has a whole different way of seeing things than her older dad, right? Even if you're born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, the way that you did things back in the day versus now your kids wanting to do it this way. Right. My 11-year-old son was, and both of them were like, mewing. I'm like, what in the world are you doing mewing? And they do the little thing, and I'm like, what is that? We had our own thing back in the day, we had our own ways of like thinking something was cool,
right?
And our parents probably looked at us like we were like, a bunch of idiots. But now I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny, I guess,
Yeah.
And I have to understand that me being the one that sells that message of understanding, I'm like, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing, and I just laugh because I think it's funny, but I'm like, I get it how you think it's cool.
Right.
And I have to respect that as long as it's not something disrespectful.
Right.
Then okay, then we got issues, but go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah. That's great because you're right. As long as you're not disrespectful, it's about bringing the cultures together and understanding how we're all one. We're all trying to get after the same thing, maybe in different ways, but how can we help each other and be respectful? Or if we're not helping each other, how can we get out of each other's way? Perhaps, right? Is maybe another side of it. So, well, let's kind of go back to, obviously you're talking about how you had to teach yourself how to fix up these homes in the beginning. And now it has led you to having a career in the construction industry, right? So you own multi-level contractors, and you've owned it, operated it now for how long? It's
about a good 8 years. 8
years you've been operating that company, which also led you to creating the United Hispanic Contractors Association, the non-for-profit that kind of brings all contractors together, which is, I love it because here you are, a business owner, you own a contracting company. And the last thing people might say is a good idea in a business plan is, why don't you go ahead and bring all your competitors into a room and teach them how to do it? My
staff tells me this time, why would you want to create your own competition?
Right. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm such a big advocate for it. In my profession, nobody wants to talk about the secret sauce. I'm trying to tell everybody, I'm like, let's talk. How do we do this? What do you do that differently than me? So let's talk about that evolution on your journey. How did you become not only from a business owner, perhaps obviously you were thinking about serving the community if you went to college, to become a child psychologist. You were probably thinking about serving community, and then you managed to tie it all back in with your entrepreneurial path that you ended on. How did that come to fruition for you?
Yeah. So a lot of the reasons people do certain things in life, either business or nonprofit or whatever, it goes back to the type of person they grew up to be, right? Their experiences. And me coming to this country, like many immigrants, came. I'm the only child. Mom and dad, myself, came to the States. Grew, I was 6 years old the first time I came, and grew up in Washington State. My parents were farm workers. They lived in we lived in a hops and grape ranch. We call it ranch, right?
Yeah.
Farm.
Yeah.
Where they worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. I remember being in first grade and having to wake up myself and feed myself, clothe myself. I'm like, can't do that with my fifth grade sometimes.
Right.
But they're like, hey, you have to be tough. It was part of normal life.
Right.
Get home, feed myself, do my chores as they came in. I grew up. I was, like I said a while ago, I was the interpreter, not only for my parents, but I became the interpreter for the community. Right. Where I was 10, 11, 12 years old when I had to go and interpret about pap smears. Wow. As a little kid. I'm like, I don't even know how to say that right now, yeah, but it's the thing down there, and, right. and having to grow really fast in a very tough environment, the kids, the gangs, kids were being bad because parents were working 12-hour days.
Right.
They didn't have time to go and be with them and take them to the soccer practice. And right. I'm like, that none of that stuff was existed. Yeah. Because there was no time to do that. There was no money to do that.
Right.
So there was people along the way in my life that kind of said, hey, you're kind of following, kind of getting off the tracks. Get back on track. I'm like, okay, hey, you're getting off again, get back on track. And right. Same thing here in high school. I lived alone my senior year, almost a whole year. Wow. As a 17-year-old. And hey, Armando, so there are some certain people that God puts in your life. Get back on track, dude. Don't follow them because you're about to get into trouble. Okay. Stay on. And we have a moral duty to give back. We have a moral duty to make sure that at least if that I could maybe influence positively somebody else that may be around my kids at some point that might keep them on the same track or and so not everybody believes in that. Not everybody thinks that I'm like, what? It's not in my business. I'm going to stay out of that business. So you fix yourself. I don't believe that. I believe that you should do as much as you can in your own, as much as you can, to make sure that you can help others and going, forward into teaching people. I teach business and construction at Metropolitan Community College, in Espanol. Mm-hmm. So, and my biggest thing is this is how you will have to follow the laws, right? To make sure that your foundation financially and legally and all of that stuff is strong. That way, as you stack your bricks, you're not going to fall, because, and the biggest part of that teaching is, don't get taken advantage of, don't protect yourself, educate yourself, because there's a lot of people here that here in Omaha that will look at you and say, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this person. Yeah. So because of the people that helped me, I now have my moral duty, to help others and creating my own competition. I don't see it that way, man. I cannot in 100 lifetimes can eat this whole cake. There's a lot of work for everybody. Yeah. There's enough work for everybody. I said, here you go. There's no way I could do that. Yeah. So bring in these men and women in front of other bigger contractors that need them. So they marry each other and both the bigger companies grow into bigger and better things, and the smaller, contractors grow with them.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win situation. I'm just a connector. I'm literally that bridge, right? I'm just that bridge that just closes that gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really well said. And I mean, I think it's fantastic. The fact that you step in, be that voice. I mean, I think of, I'm not sure if you know Officer Tony Espejo, who started the, So of course, when I was in, I just coached for 1 year with him, but I'd be down at the facility with him talking, and there'd be kids, walking along the street, and he'd call them out by name. Hey, why haven't I seen you here last week? You got to get over here. And it struck me because I was like, this guy does not have to do that. Right. No. He has no reason to necessarily be talking to these kids, but just out of the goodness of his heart, he's going to hold them in check too.
Correct.
To call them out, not just be here to coddle you when you show up. It's like when you're doing something wrong, put you on track. And that's something everybody needs in every culture, by the way. I think that spans across every language and every God, every religion. It is, you need that help, right?
People, I think, and this is my own opinion, and people do get so sucked into having the best car, the best house, which is awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I do too. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that you can't just be on that, because how I have a saying. I saw this somewhere. I don't remember where I read this, so I would love to give credit whoever wrote this originally. I don't chase money. I chase the freedom money gives me.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, there's no way that you can take any of the stuff that you have with you. Yeah. So, and who are you going to leave it to? I guess to your kids, right? But, while you're here, is there anything else that you could do? And for me is just being free, and teaching others how to enjoy their life that they so much work for versus just working their butts off all the time.
Right.
Right. It's like, dude, you planted this tree, you water the tree every time, you prune it, you do everything. Yeah. You never eat the fruit.
Right. Yeah.
Like, when do you eat the fruit?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to remind people of that sometimes. I got to remind myself too sometimes. That actually helps me remind me.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And it is such a, it's a burden too, because chasing those things a lot of times will lead you to doing the wrong thing. Yeah. Right. If that's your only goal in mind, when are you going to say no? Correct. To the wrong opportunity coming your way? Right.
Exactly. I mean, how many more billions does Jeff Bezos need? Like, at that point, it's not even. I don't know him, but I don't think it's not about money anymore at that point.
Can't be.
It can't be, because you have everything. You can't. And you are not going to take any of it with you. Yeah. So what are you doing right now? I would love to ask him that question. Yeah. What do you do now without having to tell all your investors, like, hey, we got more money for you? I mean, other than that, is there anything else that you're gaining? Right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what he gives back or not.
I'm sure he donates a lot. I mean, I'm sure he does, but at the same time, to your point, there's people who may be only endlessly chasing that goal, and it's a burden.
You're never gonna find it. You're never gonna reach it.
You aren't. No, because every time you get there, it only gets higher and higher, and that's where you see some of these individuals who, I mean, I identify them as successful. You're sizing them up. It's like, okay, he's got a really sweet watch on. Yeah. He's got a nice car. Yeah. That suit fabric is expensive. It's nicer than my suit. I know that. But then you wonder, what is their home life like? Yep. What is it if their kid? What is the value of having everything you want if your kid doesn't even talk to you when you come home? And there's going to be periods of time when that's going to happen to everybody, I think. Or so I'm told. I mean, I've got young ones. I mean, I remember being a teenager. I'm sure it's coming for me. But those pieces of freedom, the time, you cannot get back.
Can't get back.
Okay. You can go ahead and start a business when you're 60 and still become a billionaire. People have done it. You can go buy the Lamborghini then. But these moments, you're never going to get back. These opportunities to help, you're never going to get another opportunity to help these people, right?
Correct. While you're here, it is very important that you're not, starving to death. Of course, you gotta, I teach business. Like, Armando, aren't you contradicting yourself? I've gotten this conversation. I'm like, well, you're saying, but you actually, you're doing it. I'm like, yes, correct. But you have to learn. And I had a very almost life-threatening situation where I'm like, oh, that had to happen for me to, like, remember not to, lose more hair,
Right.
the
Yeah.
stress of, for work. I mean, and so, yes, I teach that. And it's very important that you do leave a legacy out to your kids, hopefully education first and
Yeah.
how to be good humans other than just money. But
Yeah.
it is very important. And while you do have it, while you do our work in it, it'd be great to do it right.
Yeah.
And talk to somebody like you. It definitely is very important. Like, dude, I got a bunch of money. I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Right. Can you help me out? It's very important that you do manage that appropriately, or else you're going to squander it and just, and be, and kill the tree that you so much worked for,
Yeah, absolutely.
You just got to remember how to enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah. You do have to remember to take some time to smell the roses, enjoy it. And then, gosh, isn't it so much more valuable to, you have your own money. That's fantastic. You can do your own things, but think about all the people that are going to be successful because of your teachings or because of the connections you've made. That feeling is got to be incredible. That's got to be what you do it for.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no. And of course, definitely. And when you help others, you're going to be successful yourself. I mean, believe me, when you truly do help others, not intentionally, you have to help others intentionally, not transactionally, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, I'm only helping you because I want something back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus, you know what? I'm helping you out, man. Be successful. I don't need anything from you.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever do need me, you know where it's at, but that's it. Right. And that is probably, say, if somebody asked me, what's your formula? It'd be that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I help you intentionally, and that's it. I don't need nothing from you. Right. Thanks to God, I'm good. And if you ever do need me, you have a resource, right. And that always pays 10 times fold. So business wise, if you do want to use that as a point, you just remember there's a very fine line between intentionally and transactionally. Yeah. Right. Where you're like, well, is this intentionally or transactional? I'm only doing it because I want something. Okay.
Yeah.
Take a step back.
If it's a gift, it has to be a gift.
It's got to be a gift.
And I'm a big believer in that myself. I think that as a business owner, it's important that, of course, you're being intentional about how you spend your money, what you invest in. It needs to have a return at some point. You got to pay the bills, you got to pay salaries, all of those pieces. But then as an individual and as a participant in this society and in this world, I think that's when you really need to take the minute to say, well, is it better that I give this money to a cause I most believe in or to somebody who needs it more than I do? Or do I just stock it away into my savings, XYZ, my business? That's something you have to deal with, right?
Yeah. And I preach generational wealth.
Yeah.
I preach it. I said, I can't take it with me.
Yeah.
So I got to make sure that those that do, keep whatever, if it's $100 or $100 million, that they also follow the same line of thought process that I do, or maybe it'll change because the generations will change, but at least they understand that they have to give back, at all times, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So you got to teach that for better, for your kids, grandkids, etc. I truly do believe that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. There was a billionaire, an heiress who inherited a couple $1 billion, I believe, in Germany. I could be mistaken, but she turned around and gave it all away because she was mad it wasn't just all taxed away, essentially. And I don't know if I'd say do all of it, but the majority. But it's interesting because think about the person who created that wealth. Yeah. I don't know the story, the backstory of it, but man, it was so intentional about getting it here, creating something legacy, and then one just steps in and is like, this is not what's important. What's important is something else. And so generationally, and hey, is it the wrong thing to do? It's her money. It's her money. She can do what she wants.
Correct. You have to ask that question, what's right, what's wrong? Yeah. And it's like, well, it's my right. It might be your wrong. So who's wrong or right? Yeah, that's right? A good way to put it. There's no such thing. It depends on it depends literally in your world. Everybody has their own thing, and I guess the biggest thing, and that's helped me gain the trust I believe in this community is respecting that, right? and making sure it's just respect, man. You know, I don't know why you do those things. I would never do them, but
Yeah.
I highly respect you for, do
Yeah.
your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the weird things work great. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Who's the first person who started recording themselves, playing video
Yeah.
games online?
Yeah.
You're like, why are you doing that? Who cares about it? And next thing you
Yeah.
know, it's like, well, okay, I guess you were right. Good for you,
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
my biggest thing is I can't be mad at them.
No, you can't be, can you? Yeah, the way you're envious a little bit. It's like, geez, you're pretty
Yeah.
creative, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's also touch a little bit about your shipping business, because I think that's a scope that is interesting. So U.S. Mex Express shipping, right? I mean, when did you found this business?
That was 12 years ago. I was doing marketing. I was thinking about marketing, and it's one of those things where you're bills keep coming when revenue slows down, when sales slow down. It was a winter, it was December, January, February, 3-4 months of like, okay, nobody's buying signs, or nobody's, I forgot what the exact product that wasn't selling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I got these bills coming in, revenues, not coming in. And I'm like, what? Well, I need to do something, because I can't, I'm gonna lose out. So, I keep seeing, UPS and FedEx, coming in. I'm like, who the heck is buying more stuff right now? Why are you guys keep coming more often right now?
Yeah.
And then I asked one guy, he's like, oh yeah, it's Christmas time, we probably make half a year's worth of revenue versus, the other. And I'm like, oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I partnered up with a gentleman here in 24th Street, South Omaha. He was the original Mexican pottery guy. I'm not sure if you ever went down there and saw this huge warehouse full of Mexican pottery.
Yeah, yeah.
The chimeneas and all this stuff. And
beautiful.
And I said, hey, people want to ship stuff to Mexico, but they just don't know how to do it. I'm like, well, there's UPS and FedEx. I'm like, well, they cost like 10 times more, right?
Right.
And we started shipping stuff down, like the old Dillards on 70s on Crossroads.
Sure.
We bought all the innards, all the insides of that, and got 2-3 semi truck full and shipped it down to Mexico.
Wow.
Like the showcases and there was a hotel in Bellevue, 105 rooms, like 105 TVs, 105 irons and whatnot, and we would ship them down there and sell them, and I would have about, let's say, 5 feet of the back of the semi truck trailer open. I'm like, this is money just not filled, and that's where I'm like, let's ship boxes down to Mexico. We would put them down inside of the back end. That business folded. Partner wasn't doing their part pretty much. And I said, okay, people still asking me, and I had to pivot, and because there was a need, not so much I'm like, oh, this would be a great idea. No, there was a legitimate need. And I literally partnered up with the big, huge shippers and created a brand. Right? It's literally a brand. People are like, Armando, you own airplanes and trucks? And I'm like, yep. They wear a brown uniform, brown planes, brown trucks.
Right.
They will show up tomorrow, pick up your box and take it to grandma in Mexico, wherever, in 2 weeks.
Right.
And I created a process. Right. Where it goes to Laredo, crosses over, reships down. So, without owning any trucks or airplanes. Right now, as the demand grew, I'm like, where am I going to find people that are bilingual in Omaha to hire them and take on that customer support, right? Like you do when you call the UPS or FedEx, right? And I said that's when I started looking outside the U.S. for a call center. Right now, I'm going to say 95% of that service is handled down in Central America.
That's great.
You want to ship a box to grandma in Mexico. We mainly ship down to Mexico.
Yeah.
We don't ship up, for safety reasons. We mainly ship down.
Right.
And so you call Central America, if you're in New York City or South Omaha, you call and say, I want to ship grandma something, and okay, boom, boom, boom. Who's shipping, who's receiving, and what you're taking. Check the box, make sure you're not sending any illegal stuff, and pay, and we'll pick it up tomorrow, the next business day.
Wow.
And we'll ship it, and they're waiting for their box, and that's it. We pick up at their address, and it's a great process. And that's how we kept the lights on during those dead times.
Dude, that's brilliant, because you took a problem you had. Well, I've got more space on this truck. And guess what? UPS has more space on their truck too. Yeah. It's just for them. They needed somebody to come in.
They needed us. Yeah. They need me. I need them. And now, I mean, it at the beginning there's hardly any volume. Now it's more volume, and I had to learn like logistics. I mean, if you don't know logistics, man, you don't get into this. And I failed miserably at first, and luckily I was strong enough. My foundation was strong, and it didn't rock me enough, and learned pretty quickly how logistics work, and tariffs and taxes, and Mexico doesn't like certain things to be sent down there, and legalities and safety, and it's a never-ending process.
Yeah, you're always learning, but you learn by making those mistakes, and gosh, I bet you're not going to make them again, right? That's just it. Is that much? You brought up a great point where you identify a need, not necessarily just having the bright idea, and that's where you see businesses between successes and failures. There's tons of fantastic ideas. I have great ideas all the time. Yeah. It does not mean anybody's going to pay me for those ideas, right? If they sound great to me, why wouldn't someone else want to do this? Well, they're not you, so that's exactly why, right?
Yeah. And I always tell people, like, I just started my this quarter's course at Metro, and I always ask them, like, can you tell me what everybody does, and how do you do it? And I listen. I said, I didn't listen. I didn't hear anything unique in any of your businesses or processes. Right. Because you could have the same, there would be a million businesses of the same thing, but you could do it. Your process could be very unique of how to do that. Right. Be more productive, do things faster, whatever, or cheaper, keep the same quality, etc. Right. And I'm like, that's one thing I need you guys. So I have the last class. It's 8 weeks. Yeah. And the last course, they do a mock bid, and they have to remember that question of, what am I going to do so different to stand out or to be more productive within this business? There, I have a million other competitors. Yeah. And they have to answer that one question.
I love that. I help run a group of exit advisors, and the way we open up every meeting is, instead of just saying, hi, I'm Blake Peterson, financial advisor, wealth advisor, whatever, people call me. It's like, how do you help business owners? Yeah. So it starts with that conversation. I help business owners, and you have to start out, and it's like the first time coming to those meetings, it's kind of hard maybe thinking about it. How do I help business owners?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because I do this. This is what I do. And it's like, well, everybody does that.
Everybody needs me. Yeah. Oh, that's what you think. And they may need you, but there's like a million other ones of you.
Yeah. Why should I use you? And there's been great, some of the best lessons I've learned are people who've told me no. Right? Yeah. Individuals who are successful. Yes. Hey, look at what I've done for myself. Why do I need you? Yeah. Good point.
That's a great question.
Yeah, good point. And you have to think about that. I'd be better. I'm more prepared now for those questions coming my way. But at the time, it was like, wow, it's not really a punch in the face. I consider it, very helpful. Yeah. To have those questions come along your way.
That's a good question to ask them if they're nice enough. Give you the time. Say, hey, just so I don't make the same mistake of losing another client, can you tell me why you said no to me? What was it? I'm not trying to get it. You already said no. Yeah. Leave it at that. But can you help me understand what I could do better to gain a client like yourself.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody really asked that question, and I don't think
No.
they'll give you the time to give you that answer.
Yeah, it's really it's touch and go, right? And
Yeah.
I've had luckily I haven't had very many opportunities to do that, but I have at a couple written them letters, asked them to do an exit interview, perhaps, things of that nature, and it's hard to get a response. But I think just going through the process of me being vulnerable or being open to learning and just
Yeah.
that helped me grow, even if you don't get an answer. I think
Yeah.
it's important to be able to do that and the respect you get back because to
Yeah.
me, I mean, I say no to businesses all the time. If they were to come back and say, what could I have done
Yeah.
to earn your respect? Well, now maybe next time I have this problem
Yeah.
5 years from now. Hey, that person cared a lot. Let's see if
Yeah.
they change. I'll give them
Yeah.
another chance. Right.
That could be the difference of maybe even, changing your mind. So, you know what?
Yeah.
Dang, you do care about me. That's cool.
Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe giving them an opportunity.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I'm glad that you're teaching your students that. And I mean, it's obvious. It's great because you've been there and done that in so many different things. It's nice to have somebody like you in there teaching and community colleges, especially that happens. It's
Yeah.
nice that it happens. And adjunct professors and whatnot who
Yeah.
come in, they have that experience and they can teach. And I don't badmouth anybody who obviously is just a lifelong learner and has stayed in academia. That's fine
Yeah.
for a lot of things, but for business,
Yeah.
it's like a books only go so far, bud. You
Yeah,
know?
I love teaching. I always say this is I teach you the practice, not the theory of business.
Yeah.
Where the stuff that you have to learn within my course, you have to use it because unfortunately you're gonna run into that issue.
Yeah.
And you can start using it every topic, right? Every class, you can actually start using it tomorrow.
Right. Ah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Versus,
helpful.
I'll keep that in mind in case,
Right.
if I use it or not. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you're gonna run it. You will use it.
Yeah.
Believe me, you will have to deal with that situation. So why
Yeah.
not get ahead of it and start using it right away?
Right. Absolutely. And gosh, be grounded, right? Be grounded in your decision making, living in the now because it's hard. I mean, you're looking forward and you're prepping. I know I have this problem all the time. It's like I'm a big picture guy, and my mind always goes to, well, how is that going to work when we're here, here, and here?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not
Yeah.
there yet.
Yeah.
Stay right here, focus on right now. And when you get there, you're going to handle those problems then. You know what
Correct.
I mean? And you can do some work on it. I mean, that's kind of what I do now. Obviously, I'm trying to be a big picture thinker for a lot of business owners, but I find now as the economy's kind of had a downturn, I'm becoming more of a let's focus on the now.
Yeah.
Right. Because people have been able to be very flexible and outward thinking for so long because it's been, I don't want to say easy, but it's been easier than it is now.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
To access money and do those things. And it's like, let's hone in. Let's see grounded. Right. So, man, it's fantastic.
And people, services that you provide are very important and financial literacy and business training. Some people are like, well, I don't want to go into business. I love, the arts and whatnot. I said, you still should take, my opinion, should take some business courses because you will have to deal, or negotiate that home that you want to buy. It could be a small little house, or it could be a mansion, whatever, but you're going to have to deal with it at some point. Your roof is going to get hit by one of these Omaha hails, and you're going to have to deal with the roofers, to make sure you got the best roofer. And so there's just a little bit of business, acumen that you should understand at least, hopefully you don't have to use it as much because you don't like that stuff, but you're gonna deal with it at some point in your life. And money is, money is not happiness. This is another saying that I read it somewhere. I wish I could remember where I read these things. But money is not happiness, but it sure does affect everything that makes me happy.
Oh man, that is
right. Like health, man. If I don't have health insurance, holy crap. If a home, if you don't give your kids a nice home, it's like, oh man, I remember I used to live at when I was a kid, it was roach infested little, brick house that we barely fit in. And so stuff like that, it's not 100% happiness, but it does affect the things that make you happy.
Absolutely. And it's a tool.
It's
another tool, right? And maybe you don't need it as much as other people, and that's fine, but you do need it a little bit, right? You do need a little bit of it. unless you're just like the most creative beach bum ever, you know what I mean? Like those guys,
Yeah.
bless them, man. I love those guys,
Yeah.
but guys and gals. But,
I used to, now that you said that, you know, and when I went to San Diego last time, I went to San Diego with some friends, and I would look at people, you know, unfortunately they're, you know, without a home.
yeah,
And I'm like, you know, if I was in the same, if I was homeless, you know,
Yeah.
this would be the spot to be a homeless person.
Yeah, right, no
Because
doubt.
weather was perfect, you know, and
Yeah.
people, a lot of tourists are going around. Like, hey,
Yeah.
can I get some food? I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, well, those are maybe they're the best businessmen of their practice, I guess,
Yeah,
in that
man, I don't
regard,
know.
huh? That's a new way of seeing it, maybe. But,
Yeah.
you know, maybe for my last question, because I try to keep it around 40 minutes. I think we're even stretching that. This has been great, Armando. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But you know, you have so much experience across various industries, across various cultures, and not just the culture, the Hispanic culture. By the way, you mentioned if you're a business person in Omaha, you know we have many cultures here that are built it up, and I'm sure you have to become acquainted with, right? You know, this is a podcast about ethics. Our mission is about ethics here with the Business Ethics Alliance. So, is there one key point? Is there an ethical consideration or something that you see you're always top of mind that transcends across all industries? It transcends across the cultures. It's something that you always, you know, keep present in your brain, or when you're dealing with your customers, or if you're dealing with your students. It always is there, and it's something that you think is just, you know, very important to you.
Communication, man. It might be a beating a dead horse on that. You know, a lot of people communication, man. It's are we communicating, you know, ahead of time to understand before we open our mouths. You know, there's a lot of people that say the dumbest things, and you know, he's like, what? You know,
Right.
and different cultures will see it a different way.
Yeah.
Are we communicated while we have a client,
Right.
and are we communicating after we have the client? You know, or have sold something. You know, so I think just being intentional about communicating in the right moment. You know, and there's a process for that. You can do that, but communicating within each other. Right now we're communicating, we're getting to know more about each other, and people that see this podcast, you know, and understand a little bit more of who I am and who Blake is and what Blake does. And that's the key. That communication is literally the key for that. I'm going to say that right beside it is preparation. Is, you know, well, Armando, I've lived this life. I don't understand yours. Right. I get it. You can't be mad at them, you know, because that's all they know.
Right.
You know, but does it mean that they can't start learning something else?
Yes.
Right. If they choose to only know that and react only for the stuff that they've learned in their past, or because of their life, culture, language, etc., then that's on them. And then they're gonna step on somebody, and they're not gonna like it, right? So, but if you can prepare yourself and get into different situations, learn about different things, do trainings, education, of course, you know, it will only prepare you to be a better human, but as well be a better employee, better business owner for your staff members, right? For your supervisors, bosses, whatever that may look like, that will help you get better raises, you know, and climb that ladder that you're climbing. Communication and preparation will, in my opinion, won't fix everything, but will fix a lot of the things within the business world.
Absolutely, and way more than just the business world, right? And communicate. How about being open to other people's way of communicating, right? And understanding that you're not the way you do it isn't always the correct way, and the way they do it isn't wrong, right? And it's a beautiful thing what you do, my friend, and not only for here, us in Omaha, but around the world. I mean, I can't wait to see Lingo Docs become that number one business that you're projecting out there. You got to put the goals out there to make it happen. I'm a big believer in that, and I hope it happens for you, sir. And you know what? Hopefully, I can have you back on here again. At that point, we can talk about that big.
I can go on and on and on. I'm writing a book. I mean, I'm doing a bunch of stuff here economically. To develop economically, the South Omaha community.
Yes.
I work with, my best friend, Michael Robinson, who was he was past executive director.
Yeah.
As the Business Ethics Alliance. Good friend. That's my brother, man, from another mother.
Great guy.
I would love to, we can talk here for hours and hours, but I appreciate what you're doing to expose more people in the community to communicate, right, what they're doing, and hopefully have not only Omaha, but this goes to the World Wide Web.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
A lot of people will get to see it.
Lots of countries.
So
You'd be
thank
surprised.
you for that.
Absolutely, my friend. Yeah. Thanks, Armando. Can't wait for next time, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome.